About 2 weeks ago, we received the bad news that Stars canceled Ash versus the Evil Dead. Later on last week, I found a post stating that Bruce Campbell has officially retired the character of Ash Williams. It was bad enough that Ash vs. Evil Dead got prematurely axed, but now we will no longer see Ash Williams being portrayed by the man and the legend Bruce Campbell. So I'm going to take the next couple of minutes to give both my own tribute and retrospective of my journey as a fan of the Evil Dead series. Ironically, this started when I was 7 years old. I was not supposed to be watching these type of movies at that young age, and I was living in my childhood home, and my cousin lived with me, and she had her friends spend the night, and my aunt was really cool with a lot of things and a lot of movies my cousin wanted to see. They let them, and they rented The Evil Dead. Well, no, correction. They rented Evil Dead 2. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I was both in I was transfixed, but I was scared shitless at the same time. And regretfully, I didn't get to finish the movie at that time. You know, my cousin and her friend pretty much kicked me out of the living room, and I ended up going into my room, you know. And it actually took me about another, I have to say, probably another 4 years to actually watch Evil Dead 2. So yeah, it took me till being 11 years old to actually watch Evil Dead 2. And ironically enough, unaware that I actually brought a comic and it had Army of Darkness advertised, and it said something about something in the past, blah 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 blah, out of gas. I didn't know what the hell that was. In life's little ironies, 2 years later, like back in '93, I'm not sure if it was 93 or 94. You know, I'm assuming it was 94 now that I'm thinking about it, but I'm not sure. My uncle actually taped a movie on HBO, and he did tape Army of Darkness. And the thing is, at that time, I was known for having extreme eczema and really ashy skin, to the point where people at school, they would call me Ash. Well, they would call me Ash, and they would call me Ash Bash Crash. But I saw Army of Darkness. I was like, wow, this looks fairly similar to Evil Dead 2. About when I entered high school, I realized that it was part of a whole trilogy, you know. But the funny thing was, no one else at school really watched it until one of my few friends at the time, he came out and it's like, my name is Ash. And I was like, and I am a slave. And then he was like, you watched it too? I was like, yeah, I watched Army of Darkness. That shit was awesome. You know, and you know, I pretty much thought that was a movie. It was a hit or miss movie. You know, not a lot of people were talking about Army of Darkness, really, at that time, that I was aware of. But then I entered high school, and that same uncle that taped Army of Darkness passed away. And in high school, we would start talking about horror movies and how, horror movies weren't the same. How come there aren't as many anymore? Blase, blase, blah. And of all topics, Evil Dead came out. And that was when I realized that Army of Darkness was part 3. And then that was like, I have not seen the first Evil Dead. And everyone was like, oh, that Jimmy is like a ton of blood. That thing was really bloody. I was like, huh, really? And then my other uncle at the time that was alive, I was telling him about like, yeah, you know what? I finally saw Evil Dead 2. I did not realize Army of Darkness was part 3. He was like, oh yeah, it was part 3, I saw the first one in the movie theater. It was like, oh really? How was it? He was like, oh, that thing was gory as hell. And I was like, oh, I got to see this. So I went to Blockbuster, and luckily they had both Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And so it was freshman year of high school that I finally watched the original movie. And I'm just going to tell you this right now before I cover the Evil Dead franchise. I'm one of the minority that prefers the first movie over the second. I'm of that minority. I'm not giving anything bad about Evil Dead 2, because Evil Dead 2 was one of the first 2 Evil Dead movies are one of the best horror movies of all freaking time. But when I saw the first Evil Dead, I was like, yo! I was like, damn! They weren't kidding when they said it was bloody. Damn! So, needless to say, I made sure that I got all 3 VHS tapes. Made sure of it. Then years went by, and I would rewatch the first movie a lot of times, and then I would end up rewatching Army of Darkness, thanks to my other cousin freaking breaking part 2. Freaking pissed off. Anyway, but I figured that was like something that people knew about, but it wasn't that popular. Up until years later, when I was in my early 20s, when I actually started hanging out with a fellow YouTube content creator. I was actually at his home at that time, and I actually saw him have like the Army of Darkness poster, and he was like, "Fucking Ash is awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Damn, wish it was more popular, because we could have gotten a part 4." He was like, "What do you mean you wish it was popular? So many people love this series." I was like, I haven't heard any many people talk about it. And if fate had it, I went to the Staten Island Mall the next day and was hanging out with some of the people that I was like, cool with. And then someone brings up there like, yo, what would be cool if Spencer's or even Hot Topic could get the Necronomicon. And I was like, Necronomicon Ex Mortis? It was like, yeah, man, freaking Deadites and everything. I was like, oh shoot, you guys like Evil Dead? It was like, and then everyone looks at me and was like, who doesn't like Evil Dead? I was like, damn, really? It was that popular? And then someone had a thing of Fangoria about, fan theories and demand for Evil Dead 4. And I'm like, damn, I didn't realize it was this big. Shit. And at the center of all of that was Ash Williams. And a lot of horror movies have they have great heroines, but not many have awesome heroes, and Ash Williams was a really awesome character. He wasn't the smartest person out there, he wasn't the manliest person out there, but god damn, he was just that lovable douche that he wanted to drink, get chicks, and get laid, and he just happened to be, ends up having to fight these freaking demonic types of demons that were like, damn. So I wanted a part 4 for a while too. And then, I was always talking about how Bruce Campbell is awesome, but we never really got to see him as much. He had character actor roles here and there. Particularly, it was nice to see him during the Xena years, but nothing ever metastasized where it came to Evil Dead 4. And then the remake came out, and I was really disappointed in the remake. I mean, well, I was disappointed in the fact that while the practical effects were awesome, it was missing Ash. You know, it was missing Ash. And it's like you can't have Evil Dead without Ash. You just can't. And when Ash versus Evil Dead was confirmed and greenlit, I was there for the first 2 seasons. And when Starz had a little bit of an issue with my cable company, and I didn't know that season 3 was out, and I missed half of it, I just realized I'll see it later. Now I got the chance to, and I will definitely do that in the next couple of weeks. But there are rumors about Evil Dead 4, you know, continuing the adventures of the other 2 people in the series, and a possible continuation of the reboot series, but that's not the same without Ash. It never will be Evil Dead. You can't. It's, to me, you can't have Evil Dead without Ash. And you know, I understand Bruce Campbell. He's tired of playing the same character since I was like probably a newborn. Well, no, not a newborn, but I was a year old. It's probably a year old or close to a year old when the original Evil Dead came out. But no one kind of wanes on the guy. But still, man, you know, this is goodbye to a legend. I mean, granted, we had awesome years of the character, and he will always live with us. But still, you know, there are some things that have been part of my whole life, and Ash was one of those. And so, it sucks to see him go prematurely, but from what I'm hearing, he went out on a high note in this series finale of Ash vs. Evil Dead. So, just gotta raise a glass to the great Ash Williams. Bruce Campbell, thank you for these 37 years of Ash Williams. You did an awesome job. Man, I don't even know what else to say, but thank you. Hail to the King, baby.